Today, we're going to talk about pay, and specifically how much I made as a first-year investment banking analyst right out of undergrad in New York City. And I'm not only going to talk about pay, but I'm also going to give you my personal perspective after working in investment banking on money and how pay translates into how I think about my career going forward. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Matt Huang, and I'm a current management consultant and a former investment banking analyst based out of New York. And I make these videos because I like to, but also because I would have wished that somebody would have made these videos when I was a student. My only goal is to create extremely valuable content that helps you guys out. If you like the topic of today's video, hit the like and subscribe button to help the algorithm out. But anyways, let's get into it. So before we get into the actual numbers, I want to give some context. I worked full-time in M&A investment banking from the summer of 2021 to the fall of 2022. And this was a very unique time in the investment banking industry because 2021 was an extremely hot year for investment banks. There was a ton of deal activity, capital markets were going crazy, SPACs were all the rage, and there was just a frenzy of activity in the stock market. And in the banking world, investment banks were increasing analysts and associate salaries like never seen before. For example, when I was a student, the standard Wall Street base salary for a first-year investment banking analyst was $85,000 a year. And that was what I got paid during my summer internship, during my junior year of college. But by the time I joined investment banking full-time, my firm had raised the first-year analyst base salary from $85,000 a year to $100,000 a year. And they were just following in the footsteps of a number of larger bulge bracket investment banks that had started this movement of raising base salaries. So why did they do this? You could say that rising inflation and the cost of living was one thing, but I would say that the real reason was that the banks were facing a severe attrition problem. Now, I know some of you are probably saying, well, no duh, right? Investment banking is a hard industry and most people probably leave. And you're right. Investment banks typically plan for more than 50% of their analyst classes to leave by the 2-year mark, but this was different. Recall that in 2020, when COVID hit, everybody went fully remote. And let me tell you, working fully remote as a first-year investment banking analyst is probably one of the worst things that somebody can experience. Now, I know this is a bit of a first world problem here, but for most fresh grads during this time, right out of college working in investment banking, they were missing out on being in the office and all the learning opportunities, the camaraderie, and just a lot of the benefits of being in person. And instead, they were working 80 to 100 hours a week, chained to their desks in their tiny shoebox of a New York City apartment, with literally no semblance of distinction between work or home. Because in the past, where when you left the office, you kind of knew that you were offline. Now, you pretty much had to be online all the time because your superiors would just expect you to be able to log on once you got home. And so banks started bleeding analysts left and right. And in February of 2021, a Goldman Sachs analyst survey was leaked, which revealed that analysts were working nearly 100 hours a week and sleeping 5 hours a night to keep up with an over-the-top workload and unrealistic deadlines. Half of the group, which consisted of 13 first-year employees, said they were likely to quit by summer unless conditions improved.
Hey guys, Editing Matt here. Now I realize a lot of you may have already seen this, but if you haven't and you're curious about the survey, I've linked it in the description below so you can take a look at it in detail.
Now, very few people know what it's like to work 100 hours a week, and it's very different hearing about it versus actually experiencing it. To make this a little bit more real, working 100 hours a week is basically the same as working from 9 a.m. to midnight, Monday through Friday, and then on Saturday working from 9 a.m. to midnight again, and then on Sunday working an additional 10 hours, so let's say from noon to 10 p.m. And a single week only has 168 hours in it. And when you factor in the fact that most people need at least 7 hours of sleep to function normally, you take out 49 hours from that and you're left with just 19 hours for yourself, which is less than a single day. Now, I do want to caveat that investment bankers love to overstate their hours and that oftentimes we're not working that full 100 hours because we need time to go to the bathroom, eat meals, and travel to and from the office. But just the mere fact of being online and unable to unplug from work mode for that long is extremely draining and mentally taxing. And it's a feeling that very few people have experienced firsthand. And with other fields like tech at the time being super attractive to fresh grads because of the great work-life balance and the pay, investment banks knew that they had to step things up. And so that's why they started raising their base salaries. So now let's get to the juicy part that you've all been waiting for, which is how much I made. So the way that compensation typically works in investment banking is you have a signing bonus when you first join, then you have your base salary, which is paid out to you throughout the year, and then at the end of the year, you have a performance-based bonus. And this is where the real money is, because it's typically going to be somewhere between 50 to 100% of your base salary. So almost half of your entire compensation. And at my firm, from conversations with other fellow first-year analysts, the range of bonuses at the firm that year was a pretty tight band, somewhere between 50 to 70% of the total base salary. So my first year signing bonus was $10,000 and my base salary was $100,000 and my year-end performance bonus was around $60,000, which brought my total first year analyst compensation to $170,000. And this is all pre-tax. So after taxes, it was definitely a lot less than this. Now, I want to say that I'm not trying to brag or anything with these numbers and say that, look at how much I made. I really just want to be honest with you guys, because I believe that a lot of people in finance have a hard time talking about pay. And I think salary transparency is important for fresh grads when you're considering whether or not you want to enter the industry. And so I think it's really easy to fixate on pay as well when you're young. But what I realized from my time in banking is that, first of all, money didn't end up bringing me the level of fulfillment that I expected it would. And secondly, what matters more than anything, more than the firm you work at or the group you're in or even the work you're doing, is who you're working for. I personally think that the goal for young investment banking analysts or just young professionals in general should be to acquire skills and learn as much as possible. And more importantly, to surround yourself with people who care about you and treat you well and don't just see you as a expendable resource, but really want to invest in your development. Now, I'm sorry if this video ended on a more serious note, but I think it's super important for people to understand this before they enter the industry. So that's it for this video. And if you enjoyed it, hit the like and the subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you're wondering how I ended up in investment banking, you might want to check out this video right here. And as always, please leave in the comments any suggestions for content that you'd like me to put out next. Thanks.